Hi, I'm Dr. Bertice Berry, and I want to tell you a story. It is a very big story, and it's such a big story and a huge lesson that I may play it again tomorrow. Okay, anyway. So, I have been thinking a lot about how to help people move beyond the guilt and their shame. A lot. I give this a lot of thought, like day in and day night and day out. Because what we have been doing in this country around race, and in other countries as well, around race, gender issues, sexuality, we stand on one side or the other. And where we pick our battle is based on what we know or don't know. And then sometimes, because of our shame and guilt around knowing or not knowing, we double down on it and we start defending the shame. Instead of learning more and trying to move into more, we defend that shame. So, okay, so yesterday I said the only reason to use slides are when you have something that you cannot say with words that you want to convey, and it's usually graphs or diagrams, pictures, images that you need to use. So, this is Dr. David Hawkins' Ultimate Consciousness Scale. He says that every emotion has a vibration, and every time we have these emotions, which are powerful for teaching us to use our power instead of force, that these have, they take you places, right? He says anything that operates under pride is sucking the energy from the room. In other words, you have to get to 175 before you're giving energy to yourself and to the room. So you see where guilt and shame are. Guilt and shame are at the lowest point, and they're not only sucking energy from everybody you encounter when you're walking around with all the guilt and shame, you're sucking energy from yourself. So, how do we move beyond this? First, let's talk about what it is. Okay, so um, let's look at what guilt and shame are. The literal definition: shame is a painful feeling of humiliation or distress that is caused by consequence of a wrong or foolish behavior. Guilt is the fact of having committed a specified or implied offense, up like offense or a crime, right? So the difference being guilt is a feeling for doing something wrong, and shame is this feeling of the whole self being wrong, and it may be something done wrong to you. So it's not something necessarily that you do wrong, but something done wrong to you, and we can get behind that shame. So the literal definitions don't help often in our society because the connotation has changed throughout time. So guilt is a feeling that I have for doing something wrong or not doing something I should have done. That's a good thing. It's there to say, hey, you didn't do that right. You need to do it better. But we linger in it. And I think throughout history, we've kind of learned to kind of stay in this. Different cultures use guilt and shame to kind of keep us in our place. So, people who have ever been marginalized by a society, within that group, they tend to use guilt and shame to keep you in your place so that you don't so that the whole group survives. I hope I'm making some sense here. So you'll find marginalized groups throughout history have a great deal of guilt and shame. Now we're looking at people from the so-called dominant group of society feeling guilt and shame because of what they have not learned, what they have not known, what was never taught to them. The problem with that is that guilt and that shame becomes the thing that we then build a wall around, and we try to defend the guilt and the shame. And as you already learned from Dr. Hawkins, staying in that guilt and shame not only takes energy from you, it really pulls energy from the rest of society. So, how do we get out of it? I was reading a book called How to Become a Saint. It's in part of my teaching for the diaconate. And How to Become a Saint by Bernard. Not Saint Bernard, but it's Dr. Bernard. Oh, I don't have his name with me right now. Anyway, How to Become a Saint. You'll find it. It is a marvelous, marvelous book But I got to this part on humility and I felt like I was reading and I was like, I've read that before. And then he said something that was really powerful. He said, it's a state of truthfulness that opens the door to the work of God in us. If you don't like God, use divine, the spark of the divine, the spark of the creator. If you don't like that, just the energy within us. Why can I do that as a Christian? And because it's just words, and we're talking about the same thing. There's one God, there's just one. So it is a state of truthfulness that opens the door to the work of God within you. Humility helps us put down the guilt and the shame. Not humility in a sense of, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm nobody. Oh, not that humility, that false humility that we've been teaching throughout time. But this true, honest sense of humility that he says it's the attitude of the creation in the presence of the Creator. Knowing that the Creator is not only everywhere we are, but within us. And it is through that that we are able to do what's necessary to be done, right? So, especially when we're talking about supremacy, if you've been put in a place where everything you knew was right, and everything about your history was right, and that the history never did anything wrong, the only way to put down the guilt and the shame when you're learning what is true is through this door of humility. And that's a difficult conversation because humility is often given to the oppressed and never to the oppressors. I'm not saying you are oppressors. I'm saying those who have the power of society don't get conversations of humility, true humility. And those who are powerless are almost force-fed conversations of humility through faith, through school, through everywhere. It's always play small. Women are taught to play small. That's not humility. Humility, I mean, I sit up saying it, says, is the truth that opens the door for the work of the divine that's within me. That's a really powerful, powerful thing. And once I come to this realization, it humbles me to know I'm just human, having a human experience, and I'm learning along the way, and I will know more. But right now, I can say I'm sorry if necessary, but I can certainly turn away from that need to defend not knowing. I hope this helps. I love you.